Right, let's get more on this developing story right now. Jonathan Regev joins me live from Tel Aviv this hour, as well as Evangelos Sipsas, who is at the Gurbulak border crossing between Turkey and Iran. Jonathan, I'll begin with you going into the 9th day of war between these two nations. What's the latest coming out of Israel?
So the latest today from Israel is that Israel was able to kill two top commanders in the Iranian army, specifically targeting one of them. We're speaking of Said Izzadi. He was the head of the Palestine Corps in the Quds Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. The Quds Force is the official role of this force is to export the revolution, meaning that it's the corps in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in charge of funding, passing money, passing ammunition to Iran's proxies in the region. It may be Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza. It may be Iranian proxies in Syria. It may be the Houthis in Yemen, and most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon. If this war would have happened a year ago, we would have seen a massive response from Hezbollah in Lebanon. But Hezbollah was severely hit from the war in Israel a year ago. If this war would have happened a year ago, we would have seen a severe response from Iranian proxies in Syria. But those proxies in Syria, they needed the Assad regime. In order to do that, the Assad regime was toppled in the winter a few months ago, and now the regime in Syria is one that is far less friendly to Iran, and therefore the Said Izzadi, this man that we mentioned, he was trying to build again the Iranian proxy force all over the Middle East, and the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz saying today that the fact that Israel killed him is justice to those killed, to those injured, to those kidnapped on the October 7th, 2023 attack, because Said Izzadi is the man who financed Hamas, is the man who passed a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the ammunition, a lot of the money to Hamas, which eventually facilitated the October 7th attacks. And Eyal Zamir, the IDF Chief of Staff, calling this killing one of the major achievements for Israel in this war.
Right, Evangelo, let me come to you. You have been, of course, at that crucial Gurbulak crossing and bringing us updates through the course of the day. Could you now give us a sense of what's happening at the border there?
Well, there has been quite significant movement on this side of the border. A lot of Iranians that have been crossing into Turkey, but nothing significant to say so. Not this mass exodus that everybody is waiting for. We have been seeing a steady flow of people coming in, especially families, children, students that we have been speaking to have been coming in here to Turkey to find safety. They say they're coming here because they feel it's a country that they can rely on, that they can stay here for a certain period of time and be safe. But what we have been experiencing is that a lot of people are also going back to Iran to go see their relatives, to go see their families, and then go to see if their houses, if their belongings are still there. So there is a movement. There's not this mass exodus that is happening, but there are people who are coming in here in Turkey. What they've been describing us is pretty much a breakdown of everyday life in Iran, with no internet, with the banking system going down, with mass blackouts throughout the day. That's the description that they have been telling us. Now, it's quite visible when you see these people when they're coming here. You can see that they're shaking, and you see that they're actually, their voices are trembling because they're tired. They've been walking for days to get here to safety. But again, I have to make it clear here that it's not a mass exodus, but the local officials are expecting, if things do continue as they are in Iran, then definitely that might switch quite fast, and similar images of 2015 with Syrian refugees might see happening here in Turkey.
Right, Jonathan, let me come back to you right now in Tel Aviv. You did touch on it earlier, saying that earlier today Israel claimed that it had killed the senior IRGC overseas commander. What more do we know at this time?
We do know that Iran is trying to still fire missiles towards Israel, but Iran is having a problem not because there are not enough ballistic missiles. Iran still has hundreds or maybe even thousands of them, but the launchers have been hit in the Israeli attacks. Israeli officials are saying that up to 2/3 of the launchers that can fire ballistic missiles have been hit, mostly in western Iran, which is the area in Iran which is closest to Israel. That is why Iran is having problem firing the major numbers of missiles as we've seen before. There was a missile launch this morning. It was at roughly 3 a.m. local time, sending millions of Israelis again to the shelters. But the number of missiles sent was small, 5 or 6. This is compared with 50 or 60, which were sent in previous launches about a week ago. Of course, when we speak of these numbers, 5 or 6 are much easier to intercept than in major numbers. The Iranians are trying now to compensate by firing a lot of UAVs, a lot of drones. We're speaking of some 50 drones that were sent from Iran towards Israel today. The vast majority of them making impact. Those who did go by the defense system. One of them hit a structure in northern Israel. There was damage but no injuries. Others falling in open areas. Drones flying from Iran, of course, are spending many hours in the sky, are relatively slow, and are easier to detect and intercept. All of this means that perhaps the damage that we're seeing is smaller than compared with previous days, but these threats are taken very seriously to this day. We've seen earlier in the week what one missile can do if it impacts, how much damage it can create, how much life loss it can create. Therefore, even if the numbers of missiles are small, and even if the drones are mostly intercepted on the way, Israelis are still taking this threat very, very seriously.
Indeed, this is a quickly developing situation by the hour. Evangelo, coming back to you, what are you hearing is the situation inside Iran, and how are authorities there maybe preparing to deal with a possible influx of Iranians crossing into Turkey?
We have been speaking to a number of people that have been crossing from Iran to Turkey. The situation that they're describing us is very difficult. They're describing us a situation of normal life does not exist. They say that every so often they feel like the sky is opening up, then bombs are coming down, and the next thing they know is the earth shaking and a bunch of rubble around them. Screams, trying to find people among the rubble. They're telling us that there's no internet, that there's no banking systems, that blackouts happen constantly. They're telling us that it's taking them hours to actually get to safety, and those who are lucky are coming on this side of the border with their suitcases with bags. Children clinch on their arms. So those are some of the descriptions of what they've been telling us inside of Iran. And they're concerned. They're not only concerned because they lost everything, they're concerned because what they're saying, there's growing uncertainty in the country, and they don't know what the next day looks like. And that's what concerns them most. Now, on this side of the border, there's also concerns for national security. Now, Turkey has more armed patrols throughout the border. Now, I have to mention here that they share about a 570-kilometer border with Iran. So there's constant patrols up and down, more surveillance by air from drones, and real-time feeding cameras, images that they can see in real time what is going on. So they want to make sure that nothing will threaten their national security. But at the same time, they are preparing humanitarian aid. They are in contact with local officials if there's a mass influx of Iranians coming into the country, to set up centers, medical spots, to provide any aid for those who are in need, but also to provide them with information of what they can do next or how long they can stay in Turkey. So all that is taking place, but at the same time, Turkey is very careful who is coming into the country. They're screening everybody to make sure that, yes, they're going to provide what the people need, as they did in 2015 with Syrians, but at the same time, they want to make sure that the people who are coming into this country, they're not threatening the country's national security.
All right, Evangelo, Jonathan, thank you very much for speaking to us and bringing us those updates. Jonathan Regev there speaking to us from Tel Aviv, as well as Evangelo Sipsas, who is in Turkey at the Gurbulak border crossing with Iran.